Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today on this Father's Day weekend, and glad you could join us. Our episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're going to be talking about leadership lessons from the involved father. This episode, I'm going to talk about the important role a father plays, the impact of not having an involved father, benefits of the involved father, and the father as a leader. Some principles that you can develop if you are a father that can be used in your used for leadership as well. Again, very happy to be here today. Saturday is a great day of the week to reflect. It's the day that I choose to think about my strategy. Now, I hope you can use it as well. If not, choose any day of the week to reflect on your strategy. Our show is growing. We're now available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker. So you can go there and listen to past episodes. You can find me on most social media platforms. My Twitter handle is @HawkinsJohn. That's @HawkinsJohn. And my website is johnmhawkins.com. Just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goals, because the best laid plans don't always work. This week I am looking for some stories about Dad and your father. If you have any good stories you'd like to share, or if you are a father and have a tip or a trick, then please feel free to send it to me at talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com, and you can be entered into our weekly giveaway. All right, well, leadership lessons from the involved father. Today we're going to be talking about the father crisis, the impact of not having fathers, and some of the statistics around those children who grow up without a father present in the home. We're going to then talk a little bit about the benefits of an involved father, the benefits for the children, benefits of non-residential fathers. So those are fathers that do not live in the home with the child, but they still play a very important role in the child's life. We're going to talk a little bit about how fathers must be leaders, qualities of a good father as a leader. They must have vision, courage, respect, humility, integrity, and many more traits. We're then going to talk a little bit about some of the dad traits that make dads good leaders in the workplace. Things like patience, empathy, discipline, honesty. And finally, we're going to wrap it up by creating our strategy to help us. Either we're going to become a better father, or maybe we'll appreciate the father that we had, or perhaps another father a little bit more. Father's Day weekend is a celebration honoring fathers and celebrating fatherhood, paternal bonds, and the influence of fathers in society. In Catholic countries of Europe, it has been celebrated on March 19th, which is St. Joseph's Day, since the Middle Ages. The celebration was brought by the Spanish and Portuguese to Latin America, where March 19th is often still used for it. Though many countries in Europe and the Americas have adopted the U.S. date, which is the third Sunday of June, it is celebrated on various days in many parts of the world, most commonly in the months of March, April, and June, according to home nation's custom. So as you can see, many different societies and cultures and countries have a Father's Day. This is the weekend where we do honor our fathers. However, I do have an article here that talks about the father absence, the crisis in America. This is from 2017 U.S. Census data. It says there is a crisis in America. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 19 million children, more than 1 in 4, live without a father in the home. Consequently, there is a father factor in nearly all of the societal ills facing America today. Research shows when a child is raised in a father-absent home, he or she is affected in the following ways. Poverty. 4 times greater risk of poverty. Teen pregnancy. 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. Behavioral problems, more likely to have behavioral problems. Child abuse, more likely to face abuse and neglect. Mom-child health, 2 times greater risk of infant mortality. Substance abuse, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. Incarceration, more likely to go to prison. Child obesity, 2 times more likely to suffer obesity. Crime, more likely to commit crime. Education, 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. So as you can see, there's a very important role that fathers play. We see the downside of what happens when those fathers are not in the home. And I think there's lots of things that we can do. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. We've got an article here that talks about dads and fathers. It was written by William Whitworth. He says, so on the way to work in the car this morning, I heard the radio host state that moms were twice as important as dads. He said, do what? I said to myself. This seems a little sexist, don't you think? Can you imagine a man saying that men are twice as important or valuable in the workplace? Consequently, this type of comment is exactly what is wrong with America. This is what William Whitworth says. The world and the court system, for that matter. And he says dads are just as important as moms. He goes on to talk about the statistics overwhelmingly prove that it is detrimental for children to grow up without a father in the home. Pay close attention to how many times in TV commercials, sitcoms, movies, etc. that degrade the manhood of men, dads and men. However, they should be treated just as fairly and as equally, especially in the court of law. In the author's opinion, there is an all-out war against men in general, and it's time to stand up and fight for our families and our children. He then goes on to quote and cite some of the statistics, some of which we already read. Things like 63% of suicides are from fatherless homes, 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. Lots of things happen because there are not fathers in the home. I think he's got an important point. From the author's perspective, he feels as though he is not being treated equitably as a father and that there is preferential treatment. I think that this all kind of boils down to, as I think about it, we all want to have equitable treatment. We all want to know that we matter. We want to feel special. We want to have our own reason and purpose out there. And when you think about it, fathers are just as important as mothers. Children are just as important as fathers, grandparents, and all the other family member units. So as I start to think about fathers on this day, today's a great day for us to thank them for all they've done. But it's also a good day for us to think about how they need to be held accountable as fathers themselves, and also how they can be better leaders. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy. We're coming to you live on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Would love to get your thoughts. You can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. A little later in the show, we'll be taking some phone calls. You can give us a call at 866-451-1451. That number again is 866-451-1451. Right before the break, we were talking about Happy Father's Day and how this is the weekend that many countries throughout the world celebrate Father's Day. Talked a little bit about the negative impacts of not having a father present. And then we read an article from William Whitsworth who talks about the fact that he feels that fathers are not being treated equitably in society. In the segment, I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of an involved father, benefits for children, and the benefits for non-residential father. And the non-residential fathers are those who do not live in the home with the child. The article I've got before me is by Kate Fogarty and Garrett D. Evans. It is from the University of Florida Extension. Hidden benefits of being an involved father. It says overview here. Most people agree that having an involved father has obvious benefits to children. Many of us either read the newspaper or TV programs that talk about the clear benefits of fathers being involved in raising a child by providing love, support, and comfort. We probably also agree that fathers are important because they help teach children values and lessons in solving problems they may face. Fathers also serve a role as models in their children's lives, affecting how well their children relate to peers and adults outside the home. They again go to say, before you think, wait a minute, what about mothers? Tell yourself that it's not a question of who is more important, the mothers or the fathers. The point is that having both parents involved in rearing their child has some obvious and some maybe not so obvious benefits. Benefits for the child, the family, and the fathers themselves. It says here, over the past 20 years, as more mothers enter the workforce, there's been a dramatic increase in fathers who are now being more involved in their child's lives. And father involvement is motivated by dad's sense of skills, self-confidence, social support, community, and cultural practices. When we talk about the benefits of being an involved father, we often focus on the benefits that children receive from such a relationship. Makes a lot of sense to focus on the children. But what about the fathers? Well, what are some of the ways that fathers do benefit? It says fathers' interaction with babies, engaging in cognitively stimulating activities, emotional warmth, physical care, reduced their infants' chances of experiencing cognitive delay. Babies as young as 3 months old can tell the difference between their mother and their father. They can tell by the way each one speaks to them, holds them, and by their different smells. Children whose fathers are involved in rearing them, sensitive and responsive fathering, fare better on cognitive tests and in language ability than those with less responsible or involved fathers. Improved cognitive abilities are associated with higher educational achievement. It says here a father's involvement in children's school activities protect at-risk children from failing or dropping out. Positive father involvement decreased boys' problem behaviors, especially boys with more challenging temperaments, and mental health for girls. Fathers who are more involved with their children tend to raise their children who experience more success in their career. Fathers being involved in their children's lives protects at-risk factors that pose harm for children. Father involvement is associated with promoting children's social and language skills. And I'm taking this information from an article titled The Hidden Benefits of Being an Involved Father, written by Kate Fogarty and Garrett Evans. Involved fathering is related to lower rates of child problem behaviors, including hyperactivity, as well as reduced teen violence. So as you can see, there's so many different benefits of having a father at home, but it's not just having the father at home. It means that that father needs to be engaged at home. It says here, children in foster care who have involved fathers are more likely to be reunited with their families and experience shorter stays in foster homes. Children who grow up in homes with involved fathers are more likely to take an active and positive role in raising their families. For example, fathers who recall a secure, loving relationship with both parents are more involved in the lives of their infants and more supportive to their wives. Both men and women who remember having loving, supporting fathers had life satisfaction and self-esteem. And this article talks about being an involved father, and I think this is an important distinction. We talked about the 1 in 4 families that do not have fathers. So there's 3 out of 4 that do have fathers. How involved are those fathers? Are they loving, attentive, caring? What sort of involvement are they? How involved are they with their child and their child's lives? Are they providing a good, positive role model? I think this comes down to, being an involved father means that you are accountable for helping in the family. So as you can see here, a lot of these things that we're talking about here are going to translate into leadership skills. Right? This show is all about personal development and being able to grow as a leader, grow and become a better person, grow and achieve your goals and what you want to have in life. But I think, too, it also comes down to much of what we talk about is about accountability. It's about being responsible. It's about when you are put into a role or you have a role to play, you have to understand what that role is, and you have to perform in that role. No different than if you were running a business or you're working for somebody. It's important for you to have the benchmarks and measurements to know if you're doing a good job or not. So I guess as I think back to what William said earlier about how women and mothers were twice as important as the men, William had heard that on a radio show. I think it could be true if you are talking about not involved fathers. But if you do have involved fathers, then as we can see, the benefits are great and vast. And I think, too, there are lots of not only benefits for children, but also for the family as well. And not to mention, there are a lot of benefits for the father as well, such as enjoying a secure attachment relationship with their children. They can cope with stressful situations and everyday hassles, feel as if they can depend on others more, feel more comfortable in their occupation, and feel that they can do their job well, feel confident that they have a lot to offer others in terms of job skills, parenting skills, and social relationships. There's a lot of benefits of being an involved father. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about fatherhood and leadership. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Our episodes are live and on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about leadership lessons from the involved father. Would love to get your thoughts. You can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. Also glad to take your phone calls later in the show at 866-451-1451, 866-451-1451. Those of you who email me at talk@johnmhawkins.com will be entered into the weekly giveaway. Right before the break, we were talking about the benefits of an involved father. There's benefits for children. There's benefits for the family. There's benefits for the father. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about fathers and how they must be leaders. I'm going to talk a little bit about the qualities of a good father leader, such as visionary, courage, respect, humility, and integrity. Got an article here called 5 Leadership Qualities of a Good Father. In the article, the author talks about what they believe are the most important leadership qualities of a good father. Let's see if we agree with them or not. It says, what is your definition of a leader? Maybe you think of someone who is in charge or control. And in prior episodes, we've talked about leadership, how it means different things throughout the world. There's also a big difference between a leader and a manager. So in this situation, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about a true leader in that sense, as opposed to someone who is a manager. The author says, if you think of it like that, whether we consider ourselves a natural leader or not, from the day we become parents, all mothers and fathers are leaders. The importance of the mother-child relationship has been long recognized, but there is a growing body of evidence about the important role of fathers. They reference a study conducted in 2016 by Michigan State University, used data from 730 families across America to conduct research into the effects parents' stress and mental health problems, such as depression, had on their children. The study found that fathers' relationships with their children play a surprisingly large role in their child's health and development. This was particularly evident from toddlers through to the 5th grade. The author says he's been in a number of roles where he's had to lead teams. So what he's done is he's taken some of those leadership qualities and he's applied them to being a father. He says a leadership quality of a good father is vision. We've talked about vision before, being able to create the future state, the goal. What are we trying to accomplish? So children are discovering what they like and what they're good at. As they try new things, their success or failure can shape how they see themselves and who they are and will ultimately become. Parents need to see the potential in their children and be their greatest supporter. I think this is an important one. How many times do you see parents who are stressed out, tired, disciplining their children? It's easy to do. How do we start to see the potential in the children when all you see is a behavior? While it's difficult to do, it definitely is something to be thinking about. No different when you're at work. If you're a manager or a leader at work and trying to run an organization, people are throwing temper tantrums, don't like what you're serving in the break room, don't want to come to work. Those leaders still have to make the company run. So what can we do? It says get your children involved in as many different things as possible and help them discover what they enjoy or what they're good at. Recognize natural strengths, gifts, talent your child has. Remember your child has these regularly. Encourage your children to focus on the things they enjoy, ideally why they have a natural talent for. He lists some other things here as well. But if we translate to leadership in the workplace, how would this apply? What if you did actually go out and treat your employees as children that you wanted to be successful, that you wanted to grow, that you weren't jealous of, and wanted them to be as successful as they could? It Seems like a good leadership trait to me. Number 2 on the list, leadership quality of a good father, he says, is courage. As a leader, your behavior and decisions are visible to the people you lead. For a father, the decisions you will make will be an example or pattern for your children, and they will follow it. As we know, there are times when we are faced with decisions that involve risk. When faced with these decisions, it is important, as to a father, to demonstrate courage. We want to be courageous in front of our children. And I think that, too, applies, leading by example. It applies in the workplace as well. Number 3, leadership qualities of a good father is respect. When it comes to respect, the phrase, "you get what you give," holds very true. You cannot expect to have the respect of your children if you don't treat them with respect. I know this is easier said than done for those of us that have children. You cannot expect them to be respectful to others when they see you acting disrespectfully. As a father, how you treat your child's mother is so critical for them to understand, for their understanding of respectful relationship. If your son sees you treating his mother disrespectfully, sets an example he is likely to follow later in life. If your daughter sees you disrespecting her mother, it sets an example of how she may expect to be treated later in life. She will be more likely to tolerate disrespect or even abusive behavior from future partner. This is not something we would want a father to do. Think about that in the workplace as well. Respect for one another. Being able to treat people equally. Number 4, humility. When we talk about humility in parenting, we're talking about putting the needs of your children ahead of your own. In practice, this means a number of things for fathers. First, considering the needs of your family above your own. Now, this is one of those leadership things where if you are in a company trying to get ahead or trying to run the company, how easy is it for you to put others' needs ahead of your own? It's difficult to do, but as we can see here with a father and a family, there are great benefits. You've got to think about how those apply in the workplace. Finally, leadership quality of a good father is integrity. Strong leaders live out their values to inspire the people they lead. Organizational psychologists tell us if they want to set a certain culture within the organization, you need to lead by example. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about 6 traits that make dads successful leaders. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. You're listening to My Strategy. Well, very happy if you just joined us. Happy Father's Day to all you out there. Our episodes are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we've been talking about leadership lessons from the involved fathers. This episode I've been talking about the important role a father plays, the impact of not having a father, benefits of an involved father, and the father as a leader. Right before the break, we were talking about qualities of a good father. This segment, I want to talk about 6 traits that make dad successful leaders. The show is all about personal development, making sure that we are thinking about our strategy, our growth plans, excited about what we're doing every day. I want to talk a little bit about some of these traits that make dads successful leaders. Got an article here by Jonathan Herrick. Number 1, he says, is patience. Seems like a no-brainer, right? Any dad knows that one of the foundations of parenting is patience. As an entrepreneur or small business owner, patience and level-headedness, managing stress, are vital to building a business that will succeed. Without it, you're bound to make quick decisions and rash judgments that can lead you down the way to the wrong path. I think patience is important in absolutely everything we do. And a good father needs to be patient. Nobody wants a father that is short-fused, grumpy, yelling all the time. That's not any way to be a leader. So patience, being able to understand, being able to know that it is a process. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. Number 2 on the list is empathy. He says, you've probably read over and over that business owners need to lead with an iron fist, but there's no quicker way to alienate your employees than leading like a tyrant. Just like everything, father needs to find the perfect balance between parent and pal. Every leader needs to be there to toe the line between chief and comrade. There's an interesting one here, empathy. Have you ever worked for a tyrant? A leader in an organization who went around like a bull in a china shop, making people feel unhuman, treating people with disrespect, or perhaps somebody else in the organization who might not have been a leader, but a coworker. How does that make you feel? Are they in line for the next promotion if they are a tyrant? Well, if they own the company, they might be there for a while, but most likely, if they don't have empathy, they might not. Now, there are certain cases when you need that sort of leader, but in general, wouldn't it be nicer to work with a leader who did have empathy than one that did not? Discipline. Discipline is profoundly important as a leader. Parent and person. Without discipline, children lack direction and restraint. Without discipline, employees and leaders alike are less productive and inefficient. Whether in the office or at home, discipline is not about showing them who's boss, but rather giving your kids and employees life instruction that is built upon accountability. Discipline, making sure you do what you say you will do, staying true to the plan. I think as we talk in this show weekly about strategic plans and putting together a way for us to reach our goals, we do have to be disciplined. Once a week, we get on this show and talk about, success. We talk about our goals. We talk about ways to accomplish certain things. But we have to have the discipline, which means that we show up every week. We talk about this every week. We know what we are focusing on. And discipline is something that is important. It is important for you to be real, hold people accountable. Number 4 is honesty. Honesty and transparency should be pillars of any company culture. Without the opportunity for open communication and direct feedback, any business is doomed for failure. Similarly, as a father, it is important to build a relationship of truthfulness with your children. I guess with your children, depending on the age, there might be certain truths you keep from them. For example, if the child's 5 years old, we all know about some of those cultural norms that we talk about with our children. But for the most part, we do need to be honest with our children. We need to be honest because that is going to promote open communication. It is going to help them trust us, and hopefully they will be honest with us, and we will trust them. Honesty is one of those things, those traits that can really help us to build stronger relationships. If you don't have a trust in the relationship, we've done several podcasts on trust, it can actually impact your ability to lead. In fact, there was in one of our podcasts, we were talking about trust and the fact that employees who did not trust their boss were less likely to do as they had said. Number 5 is a sense of humor. If you're a father or business owner, this one should be obvious. Without a sense of humor, issues and unexpected hurdles can be exponentially more stressful. If you can manage to go through your day with a smile on your face, it will make those ledges seem a little lower. In both roles, those looking to you as an example, children and employees, will follow suit. If you're able to tackle tasks and problems in a positive way, the attitude will become the norm. And I think there's a difference between the sense of humor and a joker. Those are two different things. To me, sense of humor is when something happens, you can see the levity in it, see it as funny as opposed to being stressed out, upset, keeping in mind that patience comes into play here as well. I think having a good censor is a good thing. You might as well have a little bit of fun in life, and you don't want your kids to think you're too serious. Servant leadership is number 6. As a father, your purpose is to act as a mentor, teach accountability, and teach children that every person deserves respect. These are just a few of the pillars of servant leadership. And only a few of your responsibilities as a parent, and they're equally important to instill in your business's team. I think it's important as we start thinking about the traits that make a good father. This is a starting point. There's many other traits out there that I'm sure many of you possess that are making you excellent at what you do. But it helps to review a few of the common traits. You're listening to My Strategy. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. After the break, we're going to be talking about creating your strategy. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. You're listening to My Strategy. We're happy to be here with you today on this Saturday. Our episodes are live and always on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're talking about leadership lessons for the father. Right before the break, we were talking about traits that make a successful leader father. This segment, I want to talk a little bit about building your strategy. When we think about a strategy, I've got 5 different pillars that I think about. There's 5 steps involved. Number 1 is awareness. Number 2 is assess and analyze. 3 is strategize and plan. 4 is implement. And 5 is support and evaluate. So if we think about this from a fatherhood perspective, we talked originally about the downside of non-involved parents and of fathers specifically, and the impact to children. So from an awareness perspective, we want to think about what is our vision, our goals, what are we trying to achieve? And in regard to fathers, fatherhood, and father leaders, how does that relate to our lives? If you are a father, you're going to have one course of actions that you're going to want to do. If you have a father and you aren't comfortable with how you've been treating that father, or perhaps you don't have the relationship you want, that could be an awareness and goal that you set you want to be focusing on. So there's a lot of different things from an awareness perspective, but we always want to be aware that there is a reason for us to develop our strategy, because we want to be clear about what it is we want to achieve. So once we've identified there's something we need to work on, we need to assess and analyze. We assess the situation by doing some analysis to figure out what are the steps that we've been taking, what are the steps that aren't working, and how are we progressing towards the goal. So if you're a father and you have children who aren't respectful, who you know that you work lots and aren't as involved in their lives, those potentially could be activities or things that you're doing, and you might identify through your analysis that you are not an involved father. Or if you are a parent in a relationship and you are not treating the father with respect or giving them the opportunity to take responsibility and do what they need to do, then you could think about ways that you could improve with that particular habit or activity that you do. So once we've really come down to assessing and analyzing and finding out what are the things we're doing, what are the things that we're doing that are not aligning to that vision that we've defined prior in awareness, and we really want to start thinking about our strategy and plan. So this is when we think about our plan, and really it's the course of actions that we've identified. There's also going to be tactics that are included. The tactics are the visible things that you do. The strategy is the course of action. So from a strategy perspective, people might not see what you're doing, but they do see your tactics. So in the case of a father, if you're seen out with your child every day, walking with them and the dog, or you're seen picking them up from school every day, that is a tactical thing. You can see that the father is engaged and involved. What is the father's strategy? We don't know. We assume that they want to be involved, but they could also be picking up because the spouse or other person, or if they're a single father, there isn't someone else to pick up the children. So we don't know why they're picking up the child or taking them for a walk with the dog, but it is a visible thing that we see, so it is a tactic. So how do all those things impact us as fathers and leaders? We need to think about that. We need to think about if a specific tactic is not working, what else have we tried? And coming up with your strategy and plan doesn't have to be too complicated. Keep it simple. Just think about things on a daily basis. What are the things I'm doing and how are those impacting me? Simple example for me is if if a child says, "Dad, I'd like you to help me with this," and I'm working, my natural tendency will be, well, I need to finish the work first. I need to finish the work because I'm providing support for the family. And as a result of that, what I'm doing here is the most important. Well, that's the action I've taken or thought about. That's my strategy. I've thought about putting work ahead of the children. But sometimes it's not always about just focusing on work and making sure that they are taken care of. And I think it's at those points when, parents have to make a difficult decision. Do I engage with the child and spend a minute, 2 minutes with them, or do I focus on the original goal that I was working on? And I think that's where it's very hard. It's hard for us to really think about, our goals and our actions. And sometimes we are focusing so much on a specific goal that we forget about everything else. And over time, if you forget about focusing and investing in those other areas of our lives, then we will reap the reward, which means that we will not be developing that part of our lives. Once you've got your plan, then you need to implement it. What are the things you can do? What are the new tactics that you can implement? Even though maybe you've identified them, but have you not been practicing them? Did you do this new tactic once, but you're not doing it a second time? That's what we want to do. We need to implement the plan and make sure that we try these new activities, that we're trying these new tasks, that we're actually engaged in executing of the strategy. It's one thing to define a strategy and come up with great ideas of what you can do. It's fun to plan, but planning is just one piece of the execution of the strategy. It's one piece, and the execution is the second piece. So how are we implementing our plan? And also, once we start implementing the plan, it's always important to gain feedback. Do you have someone who can support you, evaluate what you're doing, hold you accountable and responsible? Ask for help. It's not always easy to implement a plan, especially when things come up that were unexpected. And as a result of that, having somebody who's in our corner and can help us can make things a lot easier. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to tell you how you can put your plan into place. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network, and TuneIn Radio. Well, happy Father's Day, everyone, or Father's Day weekend, I guess I should say. In case you missed this broadcast, you can listen on iHeartRadio and Apple iTunes. And if you'd like to have something covered in the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, or you can give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. So the email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, or give us a call at 844-MY-STRATEGY. Today we've been talking about leadership lessons from an involved father. In this episode, we've been talking about the important role a father plays, the impact of not having a father, benefits of an involved father, and the father as a leader. Started off the show talking about Father's Day, what it is all about, and how it's celebrated all across the world. Many different countries, different times of the year, but many have celebrations for fathers. We also learned that there is a crisis. They call it the father crisis. Basically, 1 in 4 families who do not, 1 in 4 children who do not have a father in the home are running into a number of higher probability of having disciplinary issues, not completing high school, and other things. We talked a little bit about the impact of not having fathers and how that has impacted our society. And we talked a little bit about the benefits of the involved father. There's a lot of benefits out there. I think it's interesting to note that it's not just about being there as a father, but it's also about being an involved father, which means that you are there actively participating in what your role is. We've identified there's a number of benefits for children, benefits for the non-residential fathers, so those fathers who are not in the home, but they still can have an incredible impact on their children. We talked about the benefits for the family and also the benefits for the father. In fact, I think as we go through the show, it reinforces the fact that leaders and fathers share many, many common traits. And the better leader you are, and the more you practice being a leader, the better father you could be as well. That's why many good fathers are actually great leaders. We talked about some of the qualities of a good father. Fathers need to have vision, courage, respect, humility, and integrity. I think it's important for these fathers as leaders to help grow the organizations that they're running, just like you are growing the family that you are leading or a co-leader in. And having these traits and skills is something that we all should focus on. And if you're not strong in one of those areas, I think it's important to identify that area that you are not as strong in and then put together a plan to work on it. We then talked about some of the traits that make dads successful leaders. So we pivoted to talking about how these traits that fathers need in their own daily lives, taking care of their children, can help them in the workplace. Patience, empathy, discipline, honesty. Talked about honesty and how, when we have an honest relationship, it builds trust. And that trust in the relationship is absolutely vital to being able to maintain a strong relationship. Patience, it's easy to get discouraged, give up, but having patience can keep us cool, calm, collected, level-headed, and help us get back and make the right decision instead of a rash decision. We then talked about creating your strategy and putting your plan together. Things such as patience, empathy, discipline, honesty, sense of humor, and the servant leadership. If we can start to embody all of those, it will help us build our own strategy. And I think it's also important to be thinking about this, from a Father's Day perspective. What do you have to be thankful for? And who are you thankful for? And hopefully, by understanding a little bit about some of the things a father has to go through as a leader, it can help you be more appreciative of your fathers in your life. You've been listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We'll see you next time.